I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. It was past 10 on a Tuesday, and the laundromat was mostly empty. I've been half watching the spin cycle, half staring at my phone, the usual pause between classes that always felt heavier than it should. She was there, leaning against the counter, a thermos tucked under her arm, sipping something that steamed into the fluorescent air. "Your usual," she said, and I realized she wasn't talking to anyone else. Just me. The cinnamon latte I always ordered. I nodded, embarrassed, tugging at the sleeve of my hoodie. She smiled, small, the kind of smile that seems casual but isn't. I noticed how her ring caught the overhead light, just a glint, and then it was gone. I've been standing there too long, folding a stray sock, trying not to flick my eyes too obviously toward her hands. "You didn't have class today?" she asked. I shrugged. "Lab got canceled." "Figurdide. Ah, do laundry." Her laugh was soft, not loud enough to draw attention, but enough to make my stomach jerk. I realized I hadn't laughed like that in weeks, maybe months. My phone vibrated on the dryer, an unsent text blinking in my draft folder. I ignored it. We fell into a quiet rhythm. I loaded quarters, she stirred her drink. Our eyes met accidentally more than once. A pause stretched. Then she said something about the rain forecast, and I realized I had been holding my breath. "You know," she said, tilting her head, "you're always so focused. It's kind of nice to watch." I blinked, not sure if it was a compliment or just observation. I offered a half smile and kept folding. She leaned closer, not too close, just enough that the scent of her perfume, or maybe the coffee, tugged at something I didn't want to name. "I always see you here," she said, "even on random nights. You must like the quiet." I laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, quiet's easier." She nodded, eyes tracing some invisible line across the room, then back to me. "Easier can be lonely, too." I wanted to say something clever, something that wouldn't make me sound like a kid, but my mouth went dry. Instead, I folded a napkin that wasn't even mine, letting my fingers press into the creases until the world softened at the edges. She checked her watch, shifted her weight, and for a moment just held the space between us. No words, nothing, but everything. "You should text me sometime," she said finally, tossing her hair over one shoulder. Not like a line, not flirtation, just a suggestion dangling in the air. I nodded, pretending I hadn't registered the implication. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "I know it's late, but can you stop by?" Her eyes met mine, and that small smile returned. A private curve just for me, though she didn't speak. I left my quarters in the machine, half walking, half floating, wondering if I should have asked her why she remembered my name, or if I even wanted the answer. By the time I reached the door, the rain had started, tiny dots on the glass, like they were tapping just for me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. I didn't know what would happen next, but I had a feeling I was about to find out. I saw her again the next evening, this time in the kitchen of her apartment building's small shared lounge. I was supposed to drop off a borrowed blender for a friend, but of course she was there. "Ah, you're early," she said, stirring her tea, steam curling around her fingers. I didn't expect anyone at this hour. I shrugged, feeling a little ridiculous. Blender delivery. Nothing glamorous. She laughed, the same quiet laugh that seemed to linger in my chest long after. Sometimes quiet is enough. We sat across from each other at the little table. I noticed the faded edge of a photograph taped near her kettle, a young boy at a soccer game. I looked away quickly, but she caught me glancing. "That's my son," she said softly, not accusing, just matter of fact. He's 22 now. You'd like him. Probably smarter than me." I swallowed. It wasn't what she said, but the way her hand lingered on the mug, the way her eyes flicked down for just a second. I felt a flutter of guilt, a prick of something I couldn't name. "Yeah," I murmured. I have friends. They'd be your son's age, too." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes fully. "I know. Doesn't make evenings like this any less tempting." I choked on a laugh I didn't want to release, and for a moment, the words seemed to hover between us. There was a line there, a silent one, drawn in years and expectations. I didn't want to cross it, but I was aware of every inch of the space between us. We talked about small things, A book she'd finished, a recipe gone wrong, the way rain makes concrete smell. And in those small exchanges, I found myself imagining scenarios that shouldn't exist. Lingering hands brushing, a shared couch under a blanket, her laughter spilling across the room. My chest ached in the quiet, in the knowledge that none of it was safe, none of it belonged to me. She reached for a sugar packet, paused, then handed it to me without a word. Our fingers touched briefly. That tiny, accidental contact seemed louder than anything we could say. I looked up, expecting her to pull away, but she didn't. She just kept stirring her tea, eyes down, letting the moment stretch. I imagined myself telling her a secret, a tiny confession about how lonely nights feel when everyone else is busy. I imagined her listening. I imagined her remembering. And then I realized I wasn't sure which was more dangerous, the thing I wanted or the guilt of wanting it all. We sat for a while longer, neither of us pushing the conversation, both of us aware of the gravity hidden under mundane actions. Finally, she looked up and gave me a soft, knowing smile. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. I thought as I walked home, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. And somewhere in that glance, in that shared silence, I felt like maybe I had finally seen her too. I didn't see her for a week, or maybe it was just a few days. My routine fell off without her quiet presence, without the soft pause of her laughter at nothing in particular. I ran into her again at the corner cafe, the one she always said had the best chai in the city. I was mid-text when I noticed her shadow fall across the table. She carried a tote bag, and her scarf was tangled around her fingers. "Hey," she said. Simple, casual, but my chest tightened. I nodded, words stuck somewhere between wanting to ask if she'd been avoiding me and pretending nothing had changed. We sat at opposite sides of the table, 2 coffees between us. I watched her hands trace the rim of her cup. A bracelet jingled softly. I wondered if she felt the same tension I did, or if it was just me imagining everything. "I didn't know you liked this place," she said, stirring slowly, eyes on the swirling chai. "I usually come alone. Helps think." "Yeah," I murmured, watching the sugar dissolve. "I come here sometimes. Quiet. Helps too." Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. There was something unspoken in that glance, a hesitation. She was holding back, pulling inside herself. I didn't know if she feared me, or the consequences, or something else I wasn't meant to name. A barista walked past, setting a glass of water down. She flinched at the noise, smiled at me apologetically. I tried to fill the silence with small talk about weather, campus schedules, traffic jams, but it felt like speaking over music, just background. Did you ever, I started. Stopped. The words weren't right. I tried again. Ever think about things that maybe shouldn't happen? Her lips pressed together. A pause stretched. She didn't answer. My throat went dry. "Never mind," I said finally. My fingers drummed on the tabletop, an awkward rhythm. I wanted to reach across, to touch her hand, but I didn't. My eyes flicked to hers again. She glanced down, tucked a stray hair behind her ear, and then her gaze returned, soft, almost hesitant. Time slowed. The air between us thickened. I imagined leaning closer, feeling her warmth, saying something I'd already decided I shouldn't. I felt her lean, just slightly, maybe to reach for her cup, or maybe because she was leaning toward me too. The bell above the door jingled. Someone entered. She stiffened immediately, pulled back a little. I cursed softly inside. The moment, fragile and heavy, collapsed. "Gotta go," she said, standing, tucking her scarf more securely. She gave me a quick, small smile. Not careless, not casual. A smile that said, "We're dancing on a line." I watched her leave, heart still racing. I want to call her back, to say something, anything, but I didn't. The words hovered, unfinished. I folded my napkin slowly, noticing how my fingers trembled. The chai steamed in its cup, forgotten. And for a brief second, I could almost convince myself that if no one had walked in, if time had paused, maybe, just maybe, it would have been different. I met her at the park bench near the old library, late afternoon. The sky was pale, streaked with the last of the winter sun. I arrived early, pretending to scroll through my phone, but really just staring at the empty bench. She came with a bag of groceries, one hand brushing her hair back, the other holding a brown paper sack. "You're early," she said softly. "I didn't want to be late," I admitted. My voice sounded small to me. We sat together side by side, not touching. The bench creaked under us, the wind rustling the bare branches overhead. I noticed her hands fidgeting with the corner of her coat, pulling it tighter around her. "You always seem in control," I said, "even when things aren't really in control." Her laugh was quiet, almost brittle. "I'm not. Trust me. I pretend better than most." There was a pause, a long one. I wanted to tell her, wanted to admit everything, but the words tangled in my chest. I watched her thumb brush against the paper bag, over and over, like she couldn't stop herself. I saw you with him yesterday," I said finally. My stomach turned over. She looked up, startled. "Who?" "A friend. A classmate." I didn't know you knew him." Her lips pressed together. "Ido. He's harmless. Just conversation." Jealousy. The word bounced in my head, and I didn't stop it. My fingers tapped on my knees. It had just felt, I don't know, strange. Her eyes softened, but there was guilt there too. "I never meant to make you feel that way." I swallowed. I'm not sure I can stop thinking about this. About us. I know I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't feel it. But I do." Her gaze dropped. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, fingers lingering longer than necessary. Maybe I feel it too," she whispered, so quiet I thought I imagined it. We sat like that, the words hovering unfinished, heavy with the things neither of us dared to fully name. I felt exposed, raw, like all the careful walls I'd built were crumbling silently. A crow cawed somewhere in the distance. The wind picked up. I could hear the city faintly, distant car horns, someone calling their dog. And yet, it felt like nothing else existed. Just the two of us, the bench, the winter light. I started. My heart raced. Should I stop? Should I risk it? Her hand shifted slightly, just brushing against mine on the bench. My chest jumped. It meant more than either of us said. I looked at her, searching, needing, wanting. My voice caught. "Do you want this?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me. Her eyes were wide, careful, and there was a pause that stretched too long. My fingers itched to close the distance, but I didn't. Not yet. The question hung between us. Unspoken, unfinished. And that, more than anything, felt like the point of no return. The next week, she didn't answer my texts. Or my calls. Not immediately, anyway. At first, I thought she was busy. Maybe traveling, maybe just avoiding me. But then I saw her around the building, moving through the lobby with her groceries, her bag swinging like nothing had changed. Only, she didn't look at me. Not once. I waited. Outside her door, in the hall, even in the cafe across the street. I kept rehearsing what I'd say if she noticed me. My phone buzzed, then sat cold in my pocket. I wanted to send something. Anything, but each draft ended in hesitation, the words unreadable even to me. Finally, I bumped into her in the laundry room, folding clothes like I always did. She was quiet. The thermos under her arm didn't warm the space between us like it used to. "You've been avoiding me," I said, trying to sound casual, letting my fingers linger on the edge of a dryer. Her shoulders stiffened. I needed some space," she said softly. Her eyes didn't meet mine. We shouldn't have. Shouldn't have what? My voice faltered. I wanted to close the space, to reach across, but I stayed rooted. She took a deep breath, fiddling with the zipper of her tote. "It's complicated. I didn't tell you everything. About him." I froze. Him. I didn't know what to ask. A husband. A friend. Someone else entirely. "I didn't mean to mislead you," she continued. I wanted it to feel normal for a bit. For both of us. But it's not. Not really." My chest tightened. I wanted to argue, to laugh, to cry. Instead, I folded a towel, deliberately slow. I wanted her to see my patience, my calm, my confusion. "Why now?" I finally asked. My voice was quieter than I intended. She shrugged, eyes fixed on the floor. I can't do this without being honest. And I should have been sooner. I just didn't know how." The words felt like a gust of wind knocking over a stack of papers inside me. I wanted clarity. I wanted her hand on mine, her eyes up, something solid in the uncertainty. but there was nothing. She left, tugging the bag strap over her shoulder. I didn't follow. My phone buzzed once more. A draft message I never sent. I know. I'll wait. But where do we go from here? I stared at the empty doorway long after she disappeared. The dryer hummed, folding machines whirred. The apartment smelled faintly of detergent and cinnamon from a candle I hadn't lit. Nothing moved. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The bench where we had sat, the chai we never shared again, the brushes of hands, all of it lingered unresolved. My fingers itched for closure that wouldn't come. And somewhere deep, I wondered if she ever felt the same emptiness I did, or if I was the only one left holding a sentence that no one would finish. I found her on the staircase landing outside her apartment, the one where the sun came late in the afternoon and hit just right, catching dust motes in a lazy dance. I had been walking past, unsure if I should knock or just keep going, when I saw her leaning against the railing, arms crossed, a bag of groceries forgotten at her feet. "Hey," I said, voice lower than I meant. My fingers itched to reach for her hand, but I didn't. She didn't look at me at first, just exhaled, slow, like she was pushing down a storm I couldn't see. Then her eyes met mine, steady, careful, tired. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said softly. I didn't know if I should. My voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to say more, everything more, but I paused. We stood in silence. I noticed the small things, the way her fingers pressed into the railing, the faint crease between her brows, the way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. I could have stayed away," she whispered finally, "but I didn't, and I don't know. I don't know what to do with this." Her words were barely audible. My chest tightened. I realized then that the choice wasn't about being brave or reckless. It was about being honest, about showing her, even if it meant risking everything. I don't want to lose this," I said. Not her entirely. Just this, the pause, the look, the moment that made the world feel quiet. She looked down, then back up, eyes softening. "Neither do I," she admitted. "We didn't move closer. Not yet. Just let the space between us carry the weight of what neither of us had dared to say before." My fingers brushed the edge of the railing, almost touching hers. She didn't pull away. "I know it's complicated," I said, voice low, "but I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it." Her lips curved, just a little, no words, just acknowledgement. A small, human response that carried more than sentences ever could. "Okay," she said, soft, almost a whisper, almost nothing. But enough. Enough to let me know that she had heard me, that she had chosen the same vulnerability, the same quiet risk. I exhaled, a release I hadn't realized I'd been holding. We stayed like that, leaning against the landing, letting the sun fall across us. No declarations, no promises, just two people who had finally said what they couldn't keep inside, and survived it. Her eyes caught mine, lingering, and for a heartbeat, I felt both the weight of what we had risked and the relief of being seen. A small, shared smile, tentative, almost shy. That was enough. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, the air between us felt like something we could finally breathe in. It was 8:47 a.m. when I saw her across the street, waiting at the little coffee cart we'd fallen into by accident months ago. She had her black coat on, scarf tucked neatly, and a travel mug in hand. She smiled when our eyes met. Just that. No grand gesture, no flourish. I walked over, shoving my hands in my pockets, trying to act casual. "Morning," I said. "Morning," she replied. And that was enough. Enough to remind me that some things didn't need words, that some rhythms were just understood. We ordered our drinks, hers a chai, mine a black coffee, and found a bench near the library where we used to sit, the one where the sunlight fell right in winter. The bench was cold, slightly damp, but familiar. We didn't sit too close, just close enough that our shoulders brushed when the city noise fell away. She handed me my coffee without a word. I noticed a faint crease near her eyes when she smiled at the wind, and I thought about all the mornings, afternoons, evenings we'd spent navigating unspoken rules, stolen glances, the quiet pull toward each other. "Busy day?" I asked, letting the question hang like a thread. She nodded. "But better than last week." Her glance met mine for just a second, enough to acknowledge everything we had survived. I took a sip of my coffee, bitter but grounding, and let myself feel the calm that came from routine, from knowing she was here, from knowing she had chosen this, just as I had, without any proclamations. We talked in fragments. The rain forecast, a missed train, a stray dog someone had abandoned near the park. Nothing remarkable, nothing cinematic, but everything that mattered. Her fingers brushed the edge of the bench, just briefly, and I caught her eye. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. That small, almost accidental contact carried more than any sentence could. Time moved slowly, measured in coffee sips and the soft scrape of passing shoes. The thermos she had once carried in the laundromat days ago, now hers again, filled with chai, sat between us, quiet and unassuming. When it was time to leave, we didn't linger in a dramatic pause. I walked her to the building's door. She turned, gave me a small smile, the kind that said she knew I'd be back. That we'd be back. "I'll see you later," she said, almost casual, almost careless. But her eyes stayed on mine long enough for me to know it wasn't. I nodded. "Yeah, later." The door closed behind her, and I didn't feel longing or tension, just steady warmth. The kind that comes from shared coffee, shared routines, and the quiet acknowledgement that we had found each other without forcing it, without rushing it. I walked away, glancing back once. The bench sat empty now, sunlight striking it in the same angle as before. I thought about 8:47 a.m., the chai, the black coffee, the quiet smiles. And I realized, some things don't need a storybook ending. You just know. For both of us, that bench, that coffee, that pause in the city was ours. And that, more than anything, was enough. If this is being adapted for a video script, the optional engagement close could be, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?